Do you know some graves don't keep the dead, but awaken the living? In a small town hidden behind fog and old oak trees lies a cemetery no one dares to enter after dusk. They say a woman was buried alive there centuries ago, accused of a crime she did not commit. The story was forgotten until strange events began to occur. Visitors report feeling icy hands brush their shoulders. Whispered voices echo across empty rows of tombstones. Shadows shift where no one stands. People walking past swear the ground moves slightly beneath their feet. Soft crying carries from freshly turned soil. And at night, lanterns placed on graves flicker violently, as if unseen visitors were passing through. Those who stayed too long describe visions, ghostly women wandering the cemetery paths looking for release, spirits trapped between the living and the dead, their eyes pleading, hollow yet impossibly human. It is said that if you step onto the wrong stone, the earth will pull you down, and the ghosts will make sure you never leave. Locals avoid the cemetery at all costs. Cameras fail, compasses spin. Even the bravest feel unseen eyes watching, judging, waiting. The woman buried alive never rests, and the spirits that gathered around her grave, they never forgive. Because some hauntings are born from injustice, and some mysteries are alive. The woman buried alive was not alone in her suffering. There was someone who caused it. Records reveal her accuser, a respected figure in the town, stood silent as she was lowered into the grave, still breathing, still pleading. He lived a long life afterward, but he was never alone again. Neighbors reported his house lights turning on at night by themselves, doors opening, footsteps circling his bed until morning. He claimed a woman watched him sleep. As years passed, he stopped leaving his home. He covered mirrors. He nailed windows shut. Still, witnesses saw him speaking to empty corners, begging for forgiveness no one heard. After his death, the cemetery changed. Visitors now report two figures instead of one. A ghostly woman wandering the graves, and a second spirit following her at a distance, head bowed, face twisted in terror. They say the woman never looks at him. She doesn't need to. His punishment is not rest, it's remembrance. And locals whisper that the cemetery doesn't just trap the innocent anymore, it keeps the guilty close. Because in that ground, justice doesn't end with death, it begins there. After the accuser's ghost appeared, something changed in the cemetery. People began losing time. Visitors entered at sunset and returned at dawn, confused, exhausted, unable to explain where the hours went. Their footprints circled the same graves again and again, as if the paths had rearranged themselves. Locals noticed the gates never locked, but they never opened either. Those who tried to leave reported the same thing. No matter which direction they walked, they ended up back at the woman's grave, the one where the soil still sinks when it rains. Spirits gathered there, not screaming, not attacking, waiting. Witnesses described invisible hands guiding them gently, almost kindly, back toward the center, as if the cemetery itself was enforcing rules. Paranormal researchers believe the ground holds memory, that injustice anchored the dead so tightly it warped the land around it. The woman buried alive is no longer searching for escape. She is guarding it. They say the cemetery doesn't trap everyone, only those who ignore the whispers. Because once the dead decide you belong there, the gates become decoration, and the cemetery remembers you long after the living forget. Do you know why no one believes the ones who escape?
Because the cemetery lets only one truth leave. For decades, no one ever truly made it out, until one night. A young woman entered the cemetery at dusk, unaware of the warnings. She followed the paths, felt the cold air, heard the whispers. But unlike the others, she stopped walking. She listened. The spirits did not threaten her, they guided her. She stood before the grave where the woman was buried alive. The ground sank beneath her feet, and the air grew heavy with memory. Then the ghost appeared. Not angry, not screaming, tired. The woman understood something no one else had. The cemetery wasn't trapping people out of cruelty. It was holding them until someone remembered the truth. She spoke the buried woman's name aloud, one erased from history. The fog lifted, the path straightened, the gates opened for the first time. At sunrise, the young woman was found outside the cemetery walls, alive, but changed. She never returned. She never spoke the name again. And since that night, the hauntings have quieted. But locals say the cemetery still watches, because justice was not forgotten. It was finally heard, and the dead were allowed to rest.